Comics in Motion is thrilled to be partnering with Humble to become Humble partners. If you follow the link in the show notes, you'll be taken to Humble Bundle, where you can get some access to some amazing stuff. Digital comics, digital books, video games, coding manuals. The amount of stuff that you can get there is obscene. Plus, you get it at a ridiculous discount. So here's what you need to do. Click that link, go to Humble Bundle. Not only are you going to get great stuff at a great deal, but you're also going to support a charity and you're going to help Comics in Motion keep the lights on. So click the link, go to Humble Bundle, get yourself some amazing stuff. Thanks.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Come on, bub, for old time's sake, huh?
Harley Quinn, nice to meet ya.
Pardon my French. Fuck those fuckers.
That's like my favorite Marvel character ever, but you should never meet your heroes because honestly, he's a bit of a dick.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat.
I am inevitable. Hulk. Smash!
Back, welcome everybody to another episode of the Comics in Motion podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Phelps. My co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion TV and movie reviews for shows that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. And remember, with an average podcast comes no responsibility. Now, Chris, just before we get into our next review, this is the same, this is the first time we've had an opportunity to record after I listened to a certain episode of Comics on Trial. Now, what I need to ask you, Chris, is have you been able to sit down this week?
I've not been able to even look at anything Scott posted on social media, Dave. It was a massacre. Fair play to Dan for stepping up, Mr. Belgrave there, the Right Honourable Mr. Belgrave. But I do think, Dave, listening back, there was some bias going on from both of them. I absolutely had a valid point, and Scott was having none of it. But Scott did come out with an Attack on the Cannonball Run, Burt Reynolds, all my favourite films, Smoking the Bandit. He's gone in, Lethal Weapon, even went with Beverly Hills Cop 2 when Axel Foley stole a house, Dave. That's how much prep he'd done. It was a fucking massacre. And I don't think I've seen anybody online. There's only yourself and our good friend, Mr. Tony Farina, who have actually said, that it hasn't aged well, sort of thing. Because I loved it. We all love Ghostbusters, but I just thought it was shit, and we reviewed it. But Dave, you can't go up against somebody who's part of the Ghostbusters fan club and hope to come out of it fucking winning.
I don't think he needed to, but the fact that he retweeted the poll to all the Ghostbusters fan groups and stuff. But no, Chris, I think you did have a good point. That was the problem. You had a point.
Had one. I mentioned about Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but I was thinking, well, I don't really want to have a go at the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man because it's like quite iconic. But it was just one of the things where I was thinking, I knew within 15 minutes, I thought, I'm well out of my depth here. I'm fucked. So I'm just going to try and blag it. And then I had to throw it, even through in Donald Trump. I compared Peter Venkman to Donald Trump, and that's when Daniel and
that was the biggest Hail Mary of Hail Marys. This is like, I've got nothing. I've got nothing here. Oh, my word. That's like calling Hitler, that is.
I even text you, didn't I? Said I've just threw in there Donald Trump when we were recording live. Yeah, it was good fun though. I took it in the manner it was. That's what the whole Comics on Trial is. It's a great little series we're putting together, Dave. It's your brainchild. I think it's great. Really,
it's kind of me and Tony. So Tony came up with. Tony was talking about doing like an episode where each person from the Comics in Motion family kind of has an episode and talks about something which goes against public opinion. And then, going back and forth and brainstorming, we ended up with this idea of just having this mock courtroom drama kind of thing. And it's just so much fun to listen to. But I think Scott gave you a bit of a masterclass in preparation. He knew exactly what you were going to go after and sort of cut your legs off by saying, yeah, he's a bit of a douchebag,
Anyway, Dave, can we just get into the podcast today and the episode we're reviewing, please?
Now,
I'm
what
still
are we
moving.
going to review today, Chris?
Well, Dave, we got burned a couple of months ago because we did review the 2019 reboot of Hellboy, which was an absolute joke of a film. But we're going back to the original, Dave. 2004 Hellboy, starring Ron Perlman, made by Guillermo Del Toro, Dave.
Now, Chris, do you have any memories of this one?
I do actually, Dave. I think, obviously, I know it's a question we ask each other when we're on the podcast and stuff like that. I bought this on DVD and I remember watching it. Now, I've only watched it once and I can't find it in my collection, Dave, so I don't know who I bothered it to at all, but I genuinely really, really enjoyed it. I didn't watch it at the cinema. I watched it. And Ron Perlman is someone I've mentioned a few times across the podcast. He plays one of my favourite characters in one of my favourite TV shows, Clay in Sons of Anarchy. So he's always got that unusual face. He was it Beauty and the Beast or something years ago? He had such an unusual face.
Blade 2, wasn't he?
Blade 2, and I'm sure he's in one of the Beauty and the Beast days from like the 80s and that. So he always had this weird face. And I remember just loving it, thinking, you know what, it's something different. It was slightly off the wall, a little bit dark, a bit like Blade in some respects, but a bit more comical. And I loved the setting of the World War II Nazi stuff playing on in the background. So yeah, for me, I've always found it positive when I've watched it. But like I say, I think this time was probably only the second time I've watched it. What about yourself?
Yeah, so a little bit like yourself. I didn't see this at the cinema. I waited till it was on DVD. Didn't really know a lot. I knew of Hellboy, but didn't know a lot about the character or anything. Never really sought out any of the trades or anything. And yeah, just watched it on the old rental, the old Love Film, and loved it. It was just like completely different. Just, you know, we'll get into it about the kind of plot and the story and that, but it was less about an interesting story and more about just these interesting characters. And the fact that, I mean, you put Nazis in the film, Chris, and you make them the baddies. You've immediately got me in, and you throw in a bit of the occult and stuff like that. Throw in Rasputin. And I just thought it was a really interesting idea of throwing in this mythology along with kind of real life events and what have you. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. Bought it on DVD as well. I have watched this one, I don't know, probably somewhere in between 10 and 20 times, I think. But I haven't watched it that much in recent years. And obviously the second one came out as well, didn't it? We've discussed that one in the past. We haven't reviewed it, but I'm sure I think it was Blade 2 actually, wasn't it? When we had Matt Goss and Ron Perlman in that. I'm sure we mentioned about Hellboy 2 as well. But yeah, no, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and yeah, really, really loved it. But I've probably not seen this one now. Let me think. Probably not seen this one for 7-8 years or something. So it was interesting. Again, we say, don't we? Because we watch more and more of these films with a critical eye. It was interesting to go back and sort of think, right, okay, what is it that I like about it? Because when you watch a movie and you just enjoy it, you don't necessarily dissect it like we do. And it's like, well, what is it that I enjoy about it?
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to getting into this one, Chris.
No, I am, Dave, and I think as well we've done a few turkeys, haven't we, across all our podcasts recently? So we're sort of balancing it out with a few better ones, aren't we, the last few weeks? So I was interesting to see, had this age, it's 16 years old. Is it still as good as what I remember? Obviously, that 2019 one was a fucking abomination, wasn't it, of a film? So, and it was goddamn awful. The fact that, they made it and tried to get away with it. And they had a good lead actor. Is it David? He might have, what's he called?
Stranger Things, wasn't
Stranger
he?
Things, and he's the copper, isn't he, and stuff in that.
I can't remember.
He's just married to Lily Allen, and he's just married her.
Yeah, he's been in a load of things, hasn't he? And he is a pretty good actor. And David Harbour. That's him, isn't it?
Harbour, that's it. Yeah, David Harbour, yeah.
You know what? I kind of want to go back and watch that Hellboy again. I know it was a lot darker, and I don't think the problems were with, I mean, Ron Perlman, I'm sure will coo over a little bit cast as Hellboy. I don't think David Harbour was the main problem with that. And the fact that it was really dark. I do need to go back and watch that just to see if we were being harsh on it or not.
Yeah, and I think as well, the problem is, I don't think he was that bad either, David Harbour. But the rest of it, the setting, it was the English accents in that, Dave. It was like I've gone down this rabbit hole of watching Scott Adkins, who plays Boyka in the karate films and all that. And there's a few on Netflix. And honestly, we're talking like, if anybody who's not in the UK, Rise of the Foot Soldier, which is a range of films that are the shittest films going. In they're not even in the top 10, 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, they have a massive cult following, which I'm one of, Dave. I love these shitty Cockney London films, but the accents and the whole setting just felt really cheap. It felt like all the effects in that film, for me personally, gone on his outfit and stuff like that. But the rest of the cast were just they were like people who got out of fucking stage school or something, who'd never been in movies and stuff. It just felt really cheap. So that's how I felt anyway. But and I agree, whether...
Do you reckon Mo from EastEnders particularly gives it that feel?
That is horrendous. And EastEnders is one of the biggest soaps in the UK. Soap operas, fuck me, she was terrible.
But
Behind
ultimately,
the bar,
it is a soap opera, isn't it? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it is obviously a British comic, isn't it? So, and the fact that it's set in London, I don't think that, for me, wasn't a problem. But yeah, I think what that film missed, that this had, and the second one, from what I remember, had as well, is just a charm. It's just kind of dark and gritty, whereas this one is just a really charming movie. Not to show my hand too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're probably going to be on the same page on this one, Dave. So before we start cooing over it, should we get into our review?
Let's go.
No, Dave. Let's not get into our review. Let's get into our trailer.
Yeah, let's go for that one as well.
Autopilot. Sorry, everyone.
Watch your hands and elbows.
Pardon?
Welcome to the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. There are things that go bump in the night, Agent Myers. And we are the ones who bump back. Hellboy.
Well, come on in. Meet the rest of the family.
Abraham Sapien.
Liz Schumann. It's a beautiful name.
Don't worry, Boy Scout. She'll take care of you.
These freaks, they give me the creeps.
Really?
Every time the media gets a look at him, they come running to me. I'm running out of lies.
If there's trouble, all us freaks have is each other.
What the hell is that?
Something big.
In the absence of light, darkness prevails. 60 years ago, they tried to destroy the world. They're back.
Master. Oh my God.
Behind this door, ancient evil.
Oh well, let me go in and say hi.
Are you gonna be okay?
How big can it be?
I will say as well, the other reason for picking this one is obviously it's Halloween week. So this will release on the 29th of October, so just before Halloween. So we thought we had to do something a little bit more on the occult kind of spectrum. Now, we start off, we're in 1944, and we have Rasputin there, the Russian mystic, and the Nazis are trying to build this dimensional portal just off the coast of Scotland, and their intention is to free Ogdru Jihad to aid them in defeating the Allies. Rasputin opens up the portal, but the Allied team destroys it, and he gets sucked through, and basically they have this guy, Trevor Brutenholm, also known as Broom, and they discover this little baby Hellboy. Now, Chris, what do you reckon to the opening of this movie?
Honestly, Dave, I think you're right what you said, and there's a real charm to this. It's quite a closed set movie, isn't it? Everything is within studios pretty much, this whole movie. There's a couple of scenes where they're in like the back alley. It looks like they're in the back lot of a movie studio, whether it's Pinewood or whatever. And I know that a lot of the cemetery stuff was filmed at cemeteries and that. They had to use that. There was a lot of stuff to use. They didn't have a second team with them and things like that. It's quite interesting how it was all put together. I do think, Dave, for the effects, especially when we see the little Hellboy, and we've had this whole thing about the portal and all that, I think the effects are pretty good, you know. I think they hold really well in this. And when you're getting the soldiers going through the portal, when that, like say, Rasputin's got his hand in this thing for the portal, and it's all to do with the Nazis and you know, Hitler and that. And then when they see little Hellboy, I think that looks pretty good. I don't think it. I mean, it looks quite similar to someone like Dobby out of Harry Potter, the way the sort of animatronics type thing. But it's not something where you turn around. And we've watched stuff that's dated this past this later than 2004, and we've gone, holy shit, that looks horrendous. But this actually looks pretty good, the little Hellboy. So I think it starts quite well. The one thing I would say, if I'm going to do the Chris of normal, is quite interesting how you can actually get an alien red monster, devil child, and just give him some chocolate bars, Dave, to entice him. Now, I'm always enticed by chocolate, so wherever that leads me, I don't know. But I found that quite interesting as a thing, especially as he was shooting him. But no, I think it starts really well, and I can't say too much bad about it for a change.
Oh, you've thrown me off now.
Sorry.
What is this, Chris? Oh, dear.
Never seen Scott, Dave. I'm never going to be the same.
Yeah, I think he's broken you. No, so I agree. I think it starts really strong. As I mentioned, you know, the Nazis, they're the best villains that you can ever put in here, as far as I'm concerned. And you know, there is that kind of suspicion, isn't there? I've seen various documentaries over the years that the Nazis were dabbling in the occult, and basically that was their attempt at a Hail Mary, wasn't it? Because it was pretty obvious from way before the war actually finished that, you know, the war was done. It didn't need everyone to basically knock on the doors of Berlin. But anyway, now, you've actually touched on something there about the special effects and how they actually looked pretty good. I think one of the things that immediately struck me about this movie, and I didn't even know it at the time, but it probably was the special effects and the fact that everything looked so good. And the fact that you did have this kind of British setting. I mean, you got Ron Perlman, obviously, and you got Abe, who's voiced by... what was his name? David Hyde Pierce. It was Fraser guy. It was
and Miles.
That's it.
Niles, his brother.
Niles, yeah. So I mean, his voice is just unrecognizable. Not unrecognizable. You can recognize it a lot.
Yeah.
Searching for the wrong word. Yeah, indistinguishable. No, can't find the right word. But basically, as soon as he starts talking, you know that's Niles. And interestingly, so the actual character, the actual actor who's playing him, like his body, is a guy called Doug Jones. And so even though David Hyde Pierce did do the voiceover, he didn't want any credit on the film because he saw it and he was just like, "Nah, this is Doug Jones's performance," and so, you know, presumably he still got paid. But I thought that was kind of a nice thing for him to do. But yeah, I think the effects look pretty good, and so we had never been used to seeing anything with people with British accents, right, and put into a movie up until this time, well, generally they're the baddies. So to see something where it is set in the UK and the special effects are really good and the CGI is just starting to mature, isn't it? I mean, this is only a couple of years after Spider-Man, came out 2002, and the CGI was pretty ropey in that, wasn't it? This was before all the motion capture, and he looked kind of bendy and didn't kind of work. Even Blade 2, we said about some of the CGI there was pretty ropey, wasn't it? But I think the mixture here, I mean, it's Guillermo Del Toro, isn't it? So this was the first movie that I'd seen that he'd kind of written and directed. And I just think he gets that mixture between what to do in CGI and what to do in practical effects. I think he just gets it really, really well. And so even though, the first time we're watching this, I'm like, no real idea what's going on here. It still grabs you from the first scene, doesn't it? Because you got all the allies, you've got the American soldiers, you got John Hurt in there, national treasure John Hurt. Well, it's the young John Hurt, obviously, guy called Kevin Trainer. But, so you've got a British representation in there. And, they find the little Hellboy, they take the picture of him, and then, we kind of fast forward to the modern day, don't we? But from that first scene, it kind of grabs you, I think.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's a good point, Dave. The difference between that and the 2019 film, 15 years apart, you'd think it advanced. This looks better. I mean, the budget for this is 66 million, which is more than what Deadpool was. And he didn't make a lot. He made 100 million at the box office. I'm sure DVD sales, he probably made a little bit back. However, I do think this doesn't get enough credit, Dave. I think it's a little gem of a movie, to be honest. I think it's not a version on independent, but you made, budget 66 million. That's a hell of a commitment to it. But I just think it works. I think everything about it, the setting, the bad guys, Dave, they're a good match for Hellboy, aren't they? The monsters that turn up within the movie and things like that. And he he's a bit cocky, and he's like, chasing after them monsters at the start and that, and sort of running around out. They almost look, Dave, and I'll talk about Ghostbusters again, about them two dogs at the top of the building in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Gruesome, aren't they? And they're killing all the cops, but he's locked in with him, Hellboy, and this is when we first get to meet him. And he's there shooting him. He's got the big gun, the cigar, everything, So I think it works quite well. He's a creation of his environment, so he has got that sort of compassion for people, hasn't he, which is really good.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's been brought up and nurtured by Bruttenholm, he's his surrogate dad pretty much, so he's instilled these good characteristics in him, even though, he's this devil spawn. So he's got that side to him. So I just think it's interesting. And when we first meet the character, he's very striking, but I think the other thing this movie does quite well, because they have the FBI agent, don't they, John Myers, and he's our point of view character, because this Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, the BPRD, it's already running, it's already going, and everyone's just carrying on with their day jobs. So we, as the audience, need to be introduced to this world. And it's not like a slow, let's explain everything in exposition. We're seeing it all through John Myers' eyes. And so I think that's the other thing that it does quite well. And, the fact that he's got this love for the cats as well. You see, he's surrounded by cats. He's got this strained relationship with his dad. He's butting heads with him constantly. I just think it throws you right in there. And of course, we meet Abe Sapien, don't we? Quite early on. But when he goes to meet those dogs, you can see he's getting fed information about how to tackle them, and it's not as if he's not got the measure of them, but you can't ruffle his feathers either, And I just love that kind of nonchalant arrogance that he has, even when he's getting his arse kicked and whatever. And I just think it makes this kind of endearing character.
Yeah, I think you're right. He has no fear, basically, has he? It's quite interesting, David. It's not like me to be like this about that movie usually, but genuinely, I can't really fault it, Dave. I think it's a great movie. I think everything put together is really, really good. And I think Ron Perlman, himself, especially with the effects and that. He shows a lot of expressions. There's a couple of bits when he's talking. It looks like he's talking with like cotton buds, like almost Marlon Brando jobs, in his mouth and things like that. But it doesn't distract you from the movie at all. I think it's just put together really well, and the action scenes are good. I think the team around him are good. Obviously, he's the one and only, and you always feel in this, which is what I like. There's going to be a moment where we're going to see the reason why he is who he is. He's not got the horns and all that stuff. And you're like, there's got to be that moment where he absolutely comes alive. And we get that. I know we get at the end, but that's one thing I do like about his character. That there's something burning inside of him, even if he doesn't know it himself. And that paints a great picture through the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. These little dog things are called Samael, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So, but again, it's got the power of resurrection, hasn't it? So he basically ends up killing one of these things, but then it just resurrects and multiplies. So even though I think this is a good introduction, it kind of plays into what happens later on in the movie as well, and it sort of lays a couple of eggs in him as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think as well, it's 2004. The one difference between this and a newer version is they allude to on the TV, like you were saying about the BPDR, RD, sorry, about, is it real? And that guy's on the telly going, no, it's not. And they're trying to show this, like, almost like Loch Ness Monster style blurred picture of Hellboy. This is Hellboy. There's his tail. There's his head and all this stuff. And they're like, no, it's not. And he's lying obviously on camera without blinking going, no, it doesn't even exist. But then through the movie, there's a lot of scenes where he's fighting in the New York Underground, or the UK, it'd be London Underground, won't it? Sorry, the London Underground, where he's fighting in.
Yeah.
And no one's got a camera phone out, Dave.
Yeah,
so even though that guy's with him, the FBI guy at first, when he's chasing against, what did you say it was called there? The Samuel, is it? Samuel.
Yeah, Samuel.
Through the streets, and he's going, oh, great Halloween costumes. It's like, no, mate, they're destroying cars. They're fucking running absolute rampant. He says Hellboy's 6'5", Dave, so he's a big fucking unit, So I think it's one of them things where that seems to go out of the way, and everyone just seems to accept there is a Hellboy there, even though he's hid it for a long time. And I like that. And I like the setting of the fights. It's very grounded. But you don't see a lot of people get killed, Dave. Not at all. Even the Samuel doesn't really kill anyone. It sort of just runs past everyone, even on the subway.
Yeah, I mean, a few of the BPRD guys get taken out, don't they?
Yeah.
The like his mate and that a bit later on. Yeah, it's more kind of, he's just out in the open, so it's more a thing just created for the movie, the fact that there's this underground myth, that people talk about, and, even without camera phones, Chris, you only need a few people to see him on the underground, don't you, and cause all this damage to make it pretty much concrete, you just need a few eyewitness accounts, don't you? But, yeah, I mean, this Samuel, it drops all its eggs in the sewer. It's Cronian, who basically they find him mutilated and see that he's run by these, mechanical parts, and they take him back to the center, don't they? And old Broom starts to talk about him, about what kind of hate keeps a creature like this alive. And again, I just remember that kind of that cyberpunk kind of approach, where he's got these mechanical moving parts that are getting his heart moving, and he's kind of mostly like sand and stuff. But they take him back to the center, don't they? And he ends up killing off old Broom there.
Yeah, he does, and you almost get like we watch The Boys, Dave, don't we? We almost get the what's he called? The assassin in The Boys, the
Black Noir.
Black Noir. This guy's like Black Noir, and obviously gruesome, isn't he? Because he's clever. He makes himself look dead, doesn't he?
Yeah.
To get into what's he called? John Hurt's. What's he called? Brutenholm.
Yeah, Brutenholm is his
Broom. Yeah, sorry. And he pretends he's dead, so he's doing an autopsy on him, and he's looking at these different things, and it's a setup. And he comes out, and he's. I mean, I think the effects on that are really good. It looks slightly more advanced than some of the stuff we saw in Blade. Obviously, it's 6-7 years later, But yeah, I think it fits well. And then he's got this whole sort of chest of armor thing, and he kills him. And obviously, then Hellboy. That's it. All bets are off, Dave, aren't they? Honestly, it's a great movie just put together. It's something. It's 2 hours long, and it's just worth sitting down if you've got the time to watch it. I think it's not up there as some of the best ever, but it's certainly a really enjoyable, watchable movie. And there's plenty of action and suspense to keep you going. And obviously, we've got this thing with Hellboy where he's in love, isn't he, with Liz Sherman all the way through. And when Johnny Myers tries to put his arm around her and that, like he's at the cinema, Dave, and he's fucking lobbing stuff at him. I mean, that's quite funny. But,
yeah. And it's just little moments like that, isn't it? Because you've got this Hellboy, he is almost indestructible, isn't he? He's hard as nails, but he's got this like schoolboy crush, essentially, and he's, like I say, he's doing something fairly innocent, like just chucking little stones at the guy's head. Like, fuck off, leave her alone, she's mine. So again, I just think little moments like that just give it all its charm.
Yeah, they do. And I think that's right. I think that's what's good about it is the casting's on point for this. It really is. I'd like to go back on the second one because I have seen that once, but I don't remember anything about it, Dave. I really don't.
I think we'll at some point we'll have to do that one as well. I honestly remember that one being good as well. I don't remember it being quite as good as the first one, but it's like I say, with all these franchises, it's really difficult to make a great second follow-up movie because, here you're just introduced to this whole world, aren't you? And they've done it in a very clever way. Like I say, they're doing it through John Myers' eyes, essentially. But the second one, you're in the same world, aren't you? So they've got to do a little bit more. But I remember old Matt Goss being pretty good in it.
Yeah, maybe put it in the diary at some point, Dave. And then at least we've done all three of them at some point down the line.
All three? Oh, yeah. Including the reboot.
Yeah,
I do have to say, going back and watching this one makes me sad, that we didn't get to see the third of this, even if it's not a trilogy as such, but a third in this Hellboy world rather than the grittier kind of thing that we saw in 2019.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, we get all Rasputin kind of resurrected as well, don't we? So again, just taking that character not from mythology. He was a real bloke, wasn't he? But there was a lot of kind of myths around him and who he actually was. The old mad monk from Russian kind of times, kind of pre the revolution. But they're basically trying to get Hellboy to sort of step up and realize his true potential as that devil spawn, aren't they? And again, I kind of like that because it just speaks to kind of all of us, doesn't it? Each person, has got their own, not demons, but you've got expectations of other people that are put on you, and you've got things that you feel you want to do, and then you've got things that you feel are right, and just that inner turmoil within yourself. So the fact that, they get him to grow his horns and everything and want him to step up. And it really comes back to kind of when the FBI guy, James, he throws Broom's rosary beads at him, doesn't he? Asking him to remember who he is, and so that's where, he kind of rewrites his own destiny, if you like. And again, just for me, it's a nice little arc for Hellboy. Like I say, I don't think the story is particularly revolutionary or anything. I think it's the characters within the story that make this movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. The thing is, don't forget though, Dave, we've seen as well a lot of films since this, haven't they? This is almost like the Blade DNA, in it. Really, you look back to Blade, something a bit more grittier, something the superhero genre. Blade was the catalyst, really. We said that on our review. This is very similar. He's got a lot of beats to that, and I agree. They don't. The comics, from research, and obviously I've never read them. I ain't got a clue where they start. But this is a similar superhero journey in some respects. If he's almost like an anti-hero, I do like that bit at the end when he becomes a demon, because he seems to grow about 2 feet when his horns grow and that. He looks menacing. You're like, holy shit, he looks like he can just kill everybody. So I think that's where, and like you say, the rosary beads and that just ground him, where he's like, nah, forget this, and pulls his horns off, doesn't he, and everything. So, and he stabs him, doesn't he, as well? That's his dad, isn't it? He stabs him.
No, he's no. I mean, Rasputin wasn't his dad. I'm assuming the devil's his dad.
Oh, I thought he was his dad. Right? Okay.
I don't think so.
I thought he had 2 dads. I thought that's what the story was, and he killed his dad. No, I could be wrong.
I actually don't know. But,
Sorry, I won't call you out, Dave.
I just thought it was the old Mad Monk, wasn't it? It was Rasputin.
But that was his dad?
I don't think it's his dad. So Rasputin was at the start, wasn't he? He was trying to summon up something from, something from hell to defeat the Allies, and Hellboy just happens to come in there. So I don't think that was I don't think that was his dad. I think Hellboy just appeared from hell, and Rasputin was just his summoner, I guess you would say.
Right. Obviously, I lost that, Dave. You did say the story wasn't revolutionary.
Yeah, no, I just think, I just think the story is pretty standard, kind of 3-act story, isn't it? You get introduced to the character, you get something that's changed. Obviously, you've got the threat with the kind of devil dogs, let's call them that. But then his dad getting killed off, that's our second act. That's pissing off our main protagonist, and then he comes out and defeats them. He overcomes what was his pre-written destiny, and he chooses his own destiny, kind of thing. I think all of that is pretty standard stuff. I keep coming back to it. I just think the actual actors themselves, the casting of the actors, the performances that they give, just makes this just an overall charming movie that's just just enjoyable to just sit through.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dave. I don't necessarily think it's top of the tree, but I do think it's definitely watchable, something I can definitely go back to, and I don't say that very often, Dave, with a lot of this stuff. So no, quite interesting. And he does share a kiss at the end with Liz, Dave, because he saves her, and I'll quote the line, which I think was great. Hey, you, I'm going to do it in his voice, Dave. I haven't done an impression.
Yeah, go on. Hold on, let me get my popcorn.
Hey. That was terrible already, right? I'm trying to get deep, Dave. Deep. You've got the deeper voice than me. I'm trying to go deep. Hey, you on the other side, let her go, because for her, I'll cross over, and then you'll be sorry. That sounds terrible, Dave. Forget that.
It does. But while you were mustering up that accent, so I was trying to think. It was his actual dad is an archdemon called Azil. I couldn't remember it. So he had a human mother and this demon biological father. So yeah, Rasputin was just the person trying to initially summoning him up from hell in that first pit in 1944.
Dave, ignore my transmission before, and certainly ignore that impression, everybody, because it's fucking terrible.
Well, he's the guy as well who, his dad chopped off his right arm, and replaced it with the right hand of Doom. I don't know that's all just from the mythology around the story, the character and the comics and that. But I don't know if they really laid that out in the. They mentioned the right hand of Doom in the movie, but I don't think they spell out his whole backstory. I'm sure we got a bit more of that in the 2019 movie, but again, that was a pretty forgettable one, that one.
Yeah, no, with it.
Now, Chris, should we get into our final review?
Let's go.
Hello everyone, this is Tony Farina of DC Comics News and Fantastic Universes. I want to invite you to join me every Friday on the Feeds of Comics in Motion, where I will be joined by excellent guests to do a deep dive in an indie comic from a company other than the big two. Sometimes I'm joined by the creators themselves, and other times I'm joined by my geek friends who love to talk about all things comics. Either way, you'll have a great time hearing about some books you may have missed. Please join me on Indie Comic Spotlight every Friday on Comics in Motion.
In a world of video stores and late fees, when movies ain't what they used to be, one podcast will change the world. They will embark on a journey to look at the good and bad movies from the golden era of home video. And things are about to get nostalgic. The VHS will rise and screaming will fall.
Whoa. Dave, this has got to be the worst promo I have ever heard.
No, it isn't.
If you're going down the route of the video trailer, man, Dave, I want a training montage.
Coming soon on a podcast near you. If you listen to one podcast this week, then you're probably listening to Joe Rogan. But if you've exhausted all other podcasts, then the VHS Strikes Back is one to try.
Hi, my name's Steve, and I'm here to tell you all about the DC Comics News Podcast. Every week, my friends and I sit down and discuss everything DC. Movies, TV and streaming, comic books, and everything in between. But don't just take my word for it. Here are a couple of our sponsors. Listen to the DC Comics News Podcast. It's audio justice.
No. It's audio chaos. These wackos are crazier than I am.
Well, maybe you're both right. Whatever the case, you can find the DC Comics News Podcast on every podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere else you find podcasts. So, can I go now? Let him go. He did everything you asked. First, there was the DC Comics News Podcast. Then came the Spinner Rack. And now, the third show brought to you by the guys that brought you all that other stuff I just mentioned. I Am the Night. A story about the stories. A show celebrating Batman, the animated series. Week by week, episode by episode. Just when you thought it was safe to put on a pair of headphones, I am the Night.
Do you love Marvel and DC Comics? Or maybe you just love the blockbuster movies and are thinking of dipping your toe into the comic book world? Whether you're an aficionado or a newcomer, we've got a show that'll give you that insight into the world of the big two. Hi, my name is Max Byrne, and I'd like to let you all know about a brand new show coming very soon to the Comics in Motion network. Mandatory Marvel and DC is a show that takes a sideways look at the biggest of the big, those essential comic book classics from Marvel and DC. Join me and very special guests every week as we take a walk down memory lane and revisit those iconic graphic novels and story arcs that have crossed over into the mainstream. From Civil War to The Dark Knight Returns, Old Man Logan to Kingdom Come, if it's not huge, it's not going to get in. And if you want to know the difference between a Dark Phoenix and a Red Sun, then why not join us very soon and let's all have some fun together. Mandatory Marvel and DC, the show that every comic book fan should be a part of, coming very soon to Comics in Motion.
Now, Chris, I mentioned at the top, I haven't watched this one in a good few years now. I remember really liking it when it came out, but this is kind of at the earlier time of the domination of comic book movies, really, wasn't it? So, I think that this latest wave of comic book movies is like nothing we'd ever seen before. Obviously, we'd had like Superman the movie coming out in the late 70s. We'd had Batman 1989. You'd had these other kind of lower budget things. The Phantom is one that springs to mind. But I think when you had X-Men coming out in 2000, you had Spider-Man coming out in 2002, and you had Hellboy coming out in 2004, this is all starting to ramp up to the domination of comic book movies in cinema. And, this is all pre-MCU. I think the comparisons to Blade are quite apt. It does feel quite Blade, in particular Blade 2, I think. And obviously you've got Ron Perlman in Blade 2 as well. And, Guillermo Del Toro's influence as well in that. Now, I just think, plot-wise, just pretty standard, what you'd expect from this kind of story. But I just think all of the actors put in great performances. I think they're all charming. I think the villains, given that, their Nazi origins, and you've got the old Russian Rasputin in there, I just think it comes together really, really well. And it made me happy and slightly nostalgic to go back and watch this and enjoy it. But then it kind of made me a little bit sad that we kind of didn't see more than the two movies in this world, and we got to suffer that 2019 Hellboy. So I don't think, because of the standard kind of plot and everything was kind of by the numbers, I don't think I can. It's certainly nowhere near the top. I'm not even sure it's in Atlantis. I think I'm going to have this in as a Hall of Justice, albeit quite a strong one. What about yourself, Chris?
I think, you've tread along a lot of the stuff I was going to say, Dave. Nice. You bastard. I'm glad we never talk about stuff like this before, because genuinely, I feel exactly the same. I think it's a great movie just to sit there for a couple of hours. If you've, it's like, what can I watch? It's not going to be top of my list, Dave. You know where I would be going for my films if I've got a couple of hours to spare. However, it's been enjoyable to go back to do this. And I say probably the second time I've ever seen it. And honestly, I was thinking, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. It's the effects of it. It's not. It's a good movie. Ron Perlman is great. He doesn't necessarily chew the scenery. He just takes center stage, which is exactly why the movie's called Hellboy. He deserves to be. I think the supporting cast is great. John Hurt's good. I think David I. Price's voice work on Abe is good. And obviously you've got Doug Jones, as you said earlier, actually playing Abe. I think that's a good foil for Hellboy. And you've got the whole sort of Johnny Myers there as his conscience. You've got all these ingredients together. And I do think the bad guys, for a change, are really, really good. You want them to sort of meet the doom, and you want Hellboy to, what I'm like. I love these sort of ones like the Hulk type situation where you just get, even if it's one moment of like, oh shit, you're in trouble now sort of thing. And you do see that for a couple of minutes at the end. He doesn't necessarily use his powers as such, but you just sort of see that he goes from this sort of smart ass cigar smoking, sort of like a vigilante to an absolute demon. You're like, holy shit, this could be bad for everybody if he goes the other way. But he has got a conscience, which is good. I'm exactly with you, Dave. I've been sat there thinking, well, it's not going to be top of the tree. It's not going to Asgard. Is it an Atlantis? I'm like, I'm not sure. And I know my scoring on all the podcasts is very sporadic, Dave. Hence No Cheat, No Surrender 3 being absolutely amazing and getting such great scores on the VHS Strikes Back. But however, I'm going to put it in the middle as well. It's Hall of Justice because I just think it's a great movie, and it is at the top, like you said, Dave. It's just, I don't know whether I'm going to go back and watch it in the next 4 or 5 years, but it's definitely something. If it's on TV, I'll definitely watch it from whatever part I get into it. So yeah, good film. And I'd suggest anybody who's not watched it, don't be put off by the 2019 movie. This one from 2004 is definitely worth a watch.
You know what? I think you just hit on something there for in terms of, I was going to say film, but that doesn't insert into the sentence I was going to say. It's just a bit of a brain part there. It's a type of movie, if it's on TV, I'll sit and watch it, but I won't necessarily go and seek it out and watch it. It's a weird thing, that, isn't it? Because if it's something like the 2003 Ang Lee Hulk movie, which is on terrestrial TV on repeat quite a lot of the time, isn't it?
Ridiculous. Yeah,
I will, flick that over and intentionally turn it over. Unless it's in a specific bit right near the end where he's sort of jumping through the desert. For some reason, I quite like that bit, but otherwise I'll deliberately turn it off. Whereas if this one was on, I could catch it halfway through and just sit through and watch it all. So, yeah, I don't know what category that kind of. There's quite a few movies like that, isn't there?
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, yeah, that Ang Lee Hulk, and we said it on the review, Comics on Trial. My God, Dave, that is fucking ridiculous the amount of times that's on UK TV. Honestly, I must have seen it so many fucking times, the different sections of that film.
It
So I
must
agree.
just be really cheap. No one must want it
Shit,
because
yeah.
the amount of times they show it on these ITV2, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh God, Dave. Saturday afternoon, it's usually on. It's fucking stupid. It must be on at least once a month in the UK. I don't know why.
Now, Chris,
sorry, Dave.
we do actually have an email from Joseph again.
So nice.
he'd emailed us about, I can't remember, he emails us across comics and VHS, doesn't he? So he'd emailed about The Matrix initially, I think, and a few others. So this one is on Scream 3, and it says, "Hi guys, thanks for another great episode. I wonder if either of you were aware of the Scream TV series. It was originally on MTV years ago and had 3 seasons. It's actually pretty good. It has different characters and plot from the movies, though the same archetypes. So as a mystery thriller, it keeps you guessing all the way. Cheers, Joseph." Now, Chris, did you know there was a Scream TV series?
I did, Dave. Yeah, I didn't watch it though. I remember MTV showing it in the UK, but I don't think, Dave, they show more than the first series in the UK. I know, like Joseph, there was 3 series. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't the full run. If it was on late at night at the daft time. But I genuinely have never watched it.
I've got a feeling it might have at some point been on Netflix. Now, so it just flashed up, and I saw it as a TV series. But I think I've been a little bit burned. So Chris, I reckon for a long time, From Dusk Till Dawn was probably in my top 3 movies ever. For a long time it was. And then they brought out the TV series for that. And it was just this whole, like, I watched probably 4 or 5 episodes of it. And it was just like this weird kind of decompressed retelling of the movie, but in a TV format. And just not as good, So it kind of put me off some of these TV series, to be honest, because I absolutely love From Dusk Till Dawn, but I found it really hard going through that TV series, and it wasn't the effects or anything. It was just the fact that, if I want to watch the movie, I'll watch the movie. I won't watch a 13-hour replay of the movie by lesser actors, So yeah, it's interesting though. If it's completely different characters, mind you, how does that work with Ghostface? Do you just have all these? I guess I'd have to watch and find out. I'm intrigued now. I might have to see out the pilot. What I am going through at the minute, Chris, and again, it's really part of build up to Halloween. I'm going through that American Horror Story on Netflix. Have you seen that one?
Yes, Sam's watched it. She likes it.
Yeah, so it's something. I mean, it is a little bit, very TV series kind of thing. Not necessarily one of the really expensive ones. Not quite Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but so I haven't got a fucking clue what's going on. But it's very watchable. You got all these people walking around that are ghosts, but seem to just be walking around as people. Don't really know what's going on, but yeah, that's pretty good.
Good stuff, Dave. So, guys, if you want to contact us, as always, at Comics Emotion P on Twitter, the Comics Emotion Podcast at gmail.com if you want to email in. And as always, we've got a range of shows on the podcast feed there. Get over there, have a look. There's got to be something that you're into. And been another cracking episode, Dave. And as always, as I say, if you do get a chance, drop us a review. Get involved on your podcast catching up. I really appreciate you. Me and Dave will read it out to you guys.
Awesome. And just as you were talking there, how I like to switch off when you do that bit.
Read it again.
And guys, if you'd like to get in contact with us, no. Scream so Netflix in the UK anyway has got first 2 series of Scream on there, so
nice.
Might have to watch that. Cause I've been going through The Haunting of Bly Manor as well, so after that though, I'll definitely get on to Scream. Now, Chris, it's been awesome. Great stuff to speak to you about it again. I can't find an actual quote, so I'm going to say, how are you going to finish us off today?
I don't know why I just forget about this. Is like when we first started podcasting, Dave, and I forget every single week. I haven't got a clue what I'm going to finish off with, Dave. I'll just say,
I'd say one. We plugged at the start, don't we? The old Humble bundle. So I still managed to pick up that bundle of The Boys. Still going through that, quite honestly. I'm going to have a show with Tony going through The Boys series. So going through all the comic books and everything like that. Fucking hell, it is mental, Chris. I'm halfway through a story called Herogasm, right? And
nice.
It's not really spoiling it as such. But just because of how different it is from the movies and that, and there's obviously all things happen within this particular arc. But what it is that led by Homelander, he talks about this interdimensional not interdimensional. It's like space adventure. So they've got to go off and fight aliens and whatever. And it's just an excuse. So they give this to all the press and everything. So they all fly off. They're so-called in outer space. No, they're somewhere in the Pacific having a massive fucking orgy. Massive fucking super orgy. And some of the artwork, Jesus Christ, it holds nothing back. So but anyway, so I'll be discussing that one with Tony, and that'll appear on Indie Comics Spotlight. So there we go.
Good stuff, Dave.
Gave you a bit of time to find a quote. Have you got a quote for us to finish it off?
Oh no, they know that's what I was doing, Dave. You bar steward. Right. I don't know. See you next time.
Bye now.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Tell Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
What in the ass?
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne.
Would you care to step outside?
Come to me, son of Jor-El! Kneel before Zod!
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Batman.
Whoa! Hey!
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of Chris and Dave's. No, it's not Chris and Dave's.
Chris and Dave's reality cast.
Chris and Dave's reality comic book.
No, it's VHS Strikes Back. No, fuck, it's the other one.
Yeah,
Chat footy.
Welcome to the Contextual Podcast. Right, there we go.
I tell you what, Chat footy would have got fucking both barrels if we'd have been doing that. But anyway.
I tell you what, Dave, things are looking up for us at the moment. But anyway.
I know, yeah. Oh, but it's like I say, this is good. I'm enjoying this. I after beating Paris Saint-Germain, I'm seeing PSG.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like, it was a tactical masterclass by Ollie. I'm like, oh fucking yes, Ollie's at the wheel for a bit longer. Love it. If he loses them all, then he goes and they get someone decent in. It's like Everton, getting Ancelotti in. You just need a decent manager to take you to that next level. But
yeah. Anyway, Dave.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, right, let's go.